Hi, good morning. I'm State Senator Kevin Witkos, and we're back again for the Veterans of the Month. This month we're celebrating a veteran for the month of March 2014. Today we'll be talking with the family members of Captain Ed Simonds, who served as a captain in the United States Army. And I'd like to introduce my guests here at the table today, starting with my right, Commander Bill Newman, who is the commander of the Avon VFW post where Ed was a member, his son Stephen Simonds, his wife Joanne Simonds, and his other son Mark Simonds. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the reason why the family's here today is I got a letter in the mail that somebody that wanted to nominate Ed because he was a Boy Scout. And one of Ed's passion was assisting in the Boy Scouts of America. And he felt so strongly about Ed's service not only to his country during World War II, but to his the younger generation coming up through the Boy Scouts of America. And he nominated him, and my office reached out to his family as Ed passed away in this past December. And they were honored that we would do this for Ed today. So I wanted to bring Ed's life to you today via the web, and we're going to talk about Ed. So first of all, to Joanne, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having us. It's a delight. I met Ed when I was going to the Hartford branch of Yukon, and there were a group of us who just hung out together, and we studied together. We studied in cars, those of us who had cars, so we got to be friendly familiar, and just got to know each other very well. As I said, there was a group of us, and then we stayed in touch when we transferred to the Stores campus, and that's, the friendship developed into more, and that's where Ed started his military career.
Were you taking the same type of classes?
Not
or
at all.
He was friends with somebody else, and you said, "Oh, who's that good-looking guy over there?" Or did he say, "Who's that babe over there?"
My best friend was dating his best friend.
Okay.
So we were best friends who dated best friends who eventually married best friends. We all went to college
Sure.
together, and she and I taught together, and so it was a long-standing friendship
Fantastic.
and relationship. But it was fun when I look back on those days.
Right.
And my daughter has a way of saying, "Mom, when you took me to Yukon and showed me around, your stories were so different from Dad's."
Well, those are those little family secrets we tell one child, but maybe not the other child.
Exactly. And Mom and Dad had different viewpoints on it. But,
Sure.
So he told Stephen that he decided to join ROTC because
The version he gave me was he knew military service was likely, and if military service was going to be part of his life, then he was damn sure going to be an officer. And so for that, he signed up for ROTC, the Reserve Officer Training Corps, and he stuck through it and enjoyed it, I think, as much as anybody could. And he always had a smile when he talked about those days.
So he was in the ROTC program while he was at UConn.
Yes.
And which part of the ROTC program part of the branch was he enlisted in?
the Army.
Yep, he was
He was in the
Army.
US
He
Army.
actually served in the Army Air Force,
Okay.
the aviation services.
Now, see, that's interesting because a lot of people always think of when there's something that flies, it's part of the Air Force, but
True.
not necessarily. It could be a Navy helicopter, or in your dad's case, I guess he was. Did I read he was an X-wing fighter, or a
Fixed
wing
fixed
wing fighter?
Fixed
Fixed-wing fighter.
bird dog.
Fixed-wing
Essentially
bird dog,
a Cessna, very
Yeah.
similar to a civilian single-engine Cessna that you see at Simsbury Airport. Very similar, not a big warbird, not a
Right.
fighter pilot, but a tiny little vulnerable, slow spotter aircraft.
Right.
And what was his? Could somebody talk about his function when you're saying a spotter aircraft? What was a spotter aircraft? What was his job to do?
Yeah,
Well, I can hold on. A spotter in his case was to stay in front of the troops at a certain elevation where he could observe the battlefield and relay communications. In his case, he was with the South Vietnamese when he was over there, and he went over in '65, and he was in the Delta and they just monitored. But they also act as relay to Saigon, since they were up in the air. And in those days, they didn't have the communications to communicate with Saigon. But his job is to relay also coordinates to the ships offshore and to the artillery to support the Avon military operations.
So he was recon in the air.
Recon, exactly, yeah, recon in the air. And, a very dangerous position, I might
He
add.
provided support to the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. The Army.
Right, the Avon, yeah.
How did you keep in communication with Ed when he was serving overseas?
Letters.
Letters?
I have them all, and he has them all. I mean, he kept everyone also, and we wrote every day, and sometimes it was only on a sheet of paper as big as a memo. But he had a great sense of humor even then, and we were newlywed, and it was their treasured memories and treasured comments. But one time he sent me a letter and he said, a funny thing happened during the mortar attack today. I got shot. A funny thing happened on the way to the hospital. Whatever. We got kicked out of the officers' club because I was supposed to be in my pajamas in the hospital. So he
he had a great
made
sense
the
of humor.
very best of a very trying time.
Sure.
He really did.
That's the kind of letter you want to read between the lines, because he's telling you something that is hard to say, but in such a funny way that the message got across, but you know that they're doing okay.
Right.
Well, and
exactly.
I would say this too, that I was in a similar situation because I was married also in Vietnam, and you kept anything away from your wife that was, either uncomfortable or would make her worry. You would be light
Right.
whenever you could.
So how was Ed involved with the Boy Scouts? Was he a Boy Scout when he was a child, or when the boys were born? He said, I want to get
No,
involved.
he
or,
did that,
That
as
came much
an
later.
adult.
Really?
Right, yeah, that came much later
Yeah.
in his life.
He had it's very complicated, but he helped raise a young boy, and
Gave him support through the scouting.
Okay.
There was a,
Kinda like
became involved
a
with
big
scouting
brother
with him.
mentoring type thing.
And
Yeah.
when Colin grew up and moved down to Florida, he's now got a daughter of his
I'll go
own.
there.
Dad stayed in
Scouting.
the scout troop
Wow.
and became a scout master and was very involved and just realized. And we knew, he always loved camping, always
Right.
loved being outdoors.
He
and I
liked
don't-
camping at night, excuse me, before they had color-coded tent poles.
Yes, it was always a challenge putting a tent together in the dark. But that is one of the skills that Dad passed on to us. I think more the knowledge to set your tent up before it got dark. But that is something I don't know if that is his motivation for scouting, or if that was just a side benefit. But he absolutely loved the scouting organization and being with the boys and camping, and more stories.
And
are
helping
coming
them
out of that
achieve
group.
their goals. I mean, even when he was ill at home, there was a newspaper article about one of his boys, and he said, "Save that for me." I said, "Why? Who is it?" He said, "It's one of my Eagle Scouts."
That's fantastic.
And Ed was actually a founding member of Boy Scout Troop 177 in Collinsville.
Really.
So he's been involved in it a long time.
That's very interesting. I'm sure he shared some wonderful stories around the campfire to the boys. I mean, obviously, this
and
one
I'm
young
sure-
man that wrote the letter certainly was
Right. I'm sure
Very
he pulled
impressed.
some wild pranks on them.
was that a prankster?
Yes.
I
he
did
was-
hear about
he
him waking folks up in the middle of the night and having youngsters go perform completely unnecessary tasks to keep them on their toes.
Well, I have just a question. Maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but
Right ahead.
he was through ROTC. But what was his reason for becoming a pilot? What was his? Was he always interested in aviation, or what?
Probably. I mean, I don't I don't know that, I don't think he built model airplanes or anything,
He
but,
did.
did he?
He did, and actually,
Okay.
I was very involved
I guess
in
you
that
knew him before I
as
did.
well.
I don't mean that.
No, I have some of the leftovers still in boxes, and that was something that we actually shared was the modeling. And so I remember
Right.
sitting at the dining room table, and he would sand everything, dry fit it before you glue it together, double check,
So-
triple check.
But that's so he was
he-
doing airplane models.
And he did love airplanes, and there are thousands of pictures of air shows.
True.
Okay.
And he did not keep up his own flying for very long after Vietnam.
It was expensive.
Sure.
And we had, a new young family and a new house, and he was in school again when he came back from Vietnam. He went back to school, and he attended the University of Connecticut Law School for a while,
Okay.
and then he went and worked for his MBA and his CPA and all these other things. So school was like a religion to him.
On the
for a
GI
while.
Bill, on the GI Bill. Did he go on the GI?
No, they didn't. Did
Oh,
did
you
they?
didn't use
Did
the
we-
GI
Did they have the GI Bill then?
Yes.
I
I think
Okay.
actually that might have been his initial.
Maybe.
year.
You know what? You're probably right,
Yeah.
and
I
I'm
would think
old.
he would have, certainly the
Did he ever
masters.
talk about regretting the decision he made, or is happy that he
No,
joined the
no.
ROTC and
He
the path that
never
life took
talked
him?
about regretting any of those moments or adventures or the path and the process. Do you agree, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. No, he was a proud veteran,
Yeah.
and a proud Vietnam veteran, I might add. And he was proud of his service. He had a very, I might add this too, of our members, he was one of the earliest in 1965 to be in Vietnam. And at that time, in 1965, there was not a lot of Americans yet. And so his assignments, again, were with the Avon, with the South Vietnamese Army. And that was challenging, very challenging. And he was also stationed at the most southern city in all of South Vietnam. So the Delta...
Cà Mau, right?
Yeah, Cà Mau, right, exactly. And Cà Mau was a flat area, watery,
Swampy.
delta, the Delta, and a lot of challenges down there. And he also, there was a lot of worries where they were about South Vietnamese or Viet Cong in that area, sappers, and that's what they were attacked at times. But the story he told me that I thought was fascinating was he one night he was flying and they flew maybe 5,000 feet. They had to again be up a mile or so to be able to see the battlefield. Right. And all of a sudden, these big bursts were all around his plane, and he realized that the offshore Navy were firing a mission, and he was being bracketed, if you will. And so he hurried up and got on the coordinates and said, "Look, hey, move! You're going to blow me out of the air." And they did. But so he had had to be a lot of presence of mind. He said that he was shot at every night. Every time he went up, and did a lot of night, I might say, missions, and he was always shot at. And he said it was enormously unnerving to see these, heavy weapons coming up, blasting around him. So it was a very dangerous job he had.
Oftentimes the veterans want to talk about or send a message to the folks serving overseas today, defending our country. If Ed was sitting here, what do you think he would say to the servicemen and women that are fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq?
I think he'd say, be proud of what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think Ed was, as we've indicated, a very proud veteran. He was very supportive with us. He did a lot with us. We did, with our Poppy Drive and came to all our meetings and our coffees. He was a very vibrant fellow that shared a lot with us. And, his history is very exciting because he did a lot, and he the Vietnam veterans, I was going to ask you this, but the Vietnam veterans, when we came home,
What was tough.
was tough. And did he have any particularly issues or problems or encounters?
He did not talk about it.
Okay.
And a lot of the husbands of friends who were there, the same thing.
Right.
It was hard to get emotional support for them, and most of them just didn't bring it up or didn't talk about it unless they were with each other.
Right.
And
Yeah, I think in my whole childhood, Dad only shared 2 stories, both age appropriate or age inappropriate, as the case may be. And one of those was hardly a military story. It involved going out for pizza with one of the guys in his unit on a Friday. This is back in the 60s, so there was no meat on Fridays. So and the best part about this story was 30 years later, 20 years later, his dad was telling it to me, he was still nauseous. And he said, that gentleman ordered, and they made him a tuna fish salad pizza. So when I was a kid, that he left me with, that was probably the most terrifying moment of his Vietnam experience. The other one, which I think gives you a little peek into a sense of humor, is the time that he likes to say he dive bombed an American camp, but that's not exactly the case. There was a communication mess up, and he had a new code book, and the radio operator at the other end did not, and so he radioed in, this is Shotgun 45, that was his code name, this is Shotgun 45 to base, do you acknowledge? In a very stern voice, came back over the radio and simply said, there is no Shotgun 45. And he thought about it for a minute, he circled around, and he tried again, this is Shotgun 45 to base, do you acknowledge, over, and again the same, there is no Shotgun 45, in silence. He thought about it again for a minute, and then he radioed back, well, you should step outside the tent and look up, because here I am. Expletive deleted. And dove straight at them. And he pulled back up and circled around again, and sure enough, there was a very contrite Shotgun 45, this is base, we acknowledge you were clear. Or whatever.
It's not unusual for the vets to not tell their family very much about what took place. And first of all, it's hard, it's not easy on them to tell a story that's painful. And then secondly, they don't think they can actually tell it even to their own family sometimes. But with veterans, they will tell the story. It took me 2 years to get Ed to write this story, and it took me, really begging him, come on, Ed, it's a great story. I know you got a lot to say, and then finally he did, and it was before he was ill,
Yes,
so he did, and it was back and forth. I took voluminous notes because he really came forward and told me a lot. But they will normally tell that to a veteran. That's why I do it, and you don't have the family do it, because they won't necessarily,
Right. Even the family's safe now.
Yeah,
Right.
but with a
protection
veteran,
factor.
they know you've been there, you've done a lot with they've done, and
it's
they're a
like
brother,
this-
so you can open up to that.
the setting is
And
there.
that's what I found is universal
Right.
with World War II, Korea, Vietnam, whatever.
One of the funny things about Ed was coming home when he was discharged from Saigon, and he flew home in, I don't know, like 16 hours or something.
Yeah.
And then he got to California, and all the airlines were on strike, and he had to take a Greyhound bus from California to Connecticut. And he was so, excuse me, we're not being recorded, he was so annoyed
Yeah.
that he refused to shave on the whole trip.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm not going to.
And Bill,
You
just
know.
to contradict my mom's statement earlier,
The contradictor.
the education when he returned from the military was done through the GI Bill. I found that documentation
Yeah, I
in
thought
his
that might be the case,
papers.
because you could...
That would make sense.
10 years, you had 10 years after your release from active service to...
Yes, he
it was
took
a great
advantage of
GI
it.
Bill,
Yeah.
because I got a master's degree on the GI Bill, too. A lot of guys went to law school, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And the GI Bill made tremendous advantage.
I was beginning to think he was making education a career.
A perennial student.
But you know, I mean, a
Exactly.
fixed income aircraft is one heck. There's, as you pointed out, it's slow. You know, it's you're very exposed.
Up close.
You're up
Yeah.
close. You're off the ground. You can be hit easily. A lot of pilots were lost in Vietnam. A lot of pilots.
The armament that plane carried was
Little or none.
You had your rifle, same as
Yeah,
anybody
right,
on the ground,
exactly.
and then 4 smoke rockets to mark targets
That's
for
right, he
the
had 4.
bombers you called in.
He had 4 smoke
And
rockets.
that was really it.
Yeah.
And
And
and he said if you, if you went down or if you were in trouble, you had strips of tinsel to throw out to mark your place if you needed to be.
well, that was part of the survival
thing.
kit.
Yes.
Yeah,
yeah.
he
I think
laughed
that was
about
the
that. That
entirety
was
of the
entirely the
survival
survival kit. That he, the Air Force and the Navy had great survival kits. They had knives and weapons and all kind of stuff in their survival kit in case they were shot down. In those days, anyway, the Army had the tinsel. They could throw out the tinsel or something. That was just to
Let them know.
let them know. And it was so primitive. And he said, "What a joke." So he was early on, so he saw the conflict before the big buildup.
Right, at the very beginning. And 2 other things very quickly. You are not probably familiar. We have a piece of paper, a cardboard plaque, that Ed made a comment about being issued a flak jacket. And among the pilots, it was, if you were issued 1 flat jacket, you sat on it.
You sat on it.
If you were issued 2, you sat on 1 and wore 1.
I would think one other thing too. We should mention him. Of course, it's in here, but he was a recipient of the Bronze Star, the Air Medal with 23 Air Medal with V for Valor, and also 23 Air Medals actually for all the service. So he flew a lot in Vietnam, a lot. And also he told me the story that he was personally given the Vietnam Cross of Gallantry for his work with the South Vietnamese. Very few of us worked that closely with the South Vietnamese like he did.
Yeah. I didn't see the bio. So how long did he serve? A year? Is that what?
A year in
Oh,
Vietnam,
yeah.
4 years, roughly 4
Backstage
years
time.
in active service. Yeah.
Okay.
But flight school was a big
Sure.
challenge, and so his is a great story. Indeed.
And I have to commend Bill for an amazing write-up, the biography, with
Yes.
full-color pictures of all the amazing number of medals that he received and commendations. And the write-up of his experiences in Vietnam was just incredible, and I thank you so much for bringing that to me. because
I do too, Bill.
Well, you're welcome. It was.
Yes.
It's a joy to me to be able to bring those stories out. It really is, because those are stories that, when they pass on,
They're gone.
forever.
Right.
And like you said, it was hard.
Yeah,
getting
you had to
it
be
out of him.
persistent and really bug him. He was not, I'll get around to it one of these days, he used to say. But finally he did, and we sat down and had some long sessions, and this is preserved now.
Yeah. And I thank you, Kevin, for doing this.
Yeah, this
I
is a great
didn't know
service, too, by the way,
about
Kevin.
this Veteran of the Month
I would
until
encourage you to keep it going.
one of his
Oh my
fellow members nominated him.
It's
So
a great
thank you.
service, and
Thanks.
we have some great stories. I mean, it's just some amazing people. We have people who that have been on the Bataan Death March, have been in the first wave in Normandy, the Battle of the Bulge, Iwo Jima. I mean,
I just did a veteran received 2 Purple Hearts in Iwo Jima.
yeah, see,
He was last month's.
yeah. So I mean, they're just riveting stories, actually.
They are.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for taking your time out today to come and share Ed's story with us and everybody. And it truly was a remarkable husband and father and serviceman, and
He
we
was.
appreciate everything. Tune in next month as we continue our Veterans of the Month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.